I woke up feeling like straight trash, my gut all twisted up like I was gonna hurl. It's the same shitty feeling that hits me pretty much every morning. That sense that everything's all fucked and the world's ending. This time, though, I noticed the laptop was still on across the room. Cam was leaning in close, probably trying to get a better look at me, all twisted up in the sheets. "This morning sunshine," he said with a smirk. "You look like you got hit by a truck." I groaned and rolled over, burying my face in the pillow. "Gee, thanks, asshole. Oh, don't be like that. You know I'm just messing with you." I peeked back over at the screen. Cam had this dopey grin on that made my chest tighten up. Shit, I really was falling for this guy, wasn't I? I couldn't stop staring at Cam through the screen, even though I knew I shouldn't. His messy bedhead made him look almost cute. Fuck, get it together. "You're quiet over there," Cam said, cutting through the awkward silence. "Everything okay?" "Yeah, man, I'm good," I lied, struggling to keep my cool. An uncomfortable pause stretched between us. I could see the little crease forming between Cam's eyebrows like it did when he was worried about something. Finally, he spoke up again. "Look, about what I said last night before we hung up." And my heart started pounding. Was he regretting telling me he loved me? Did he realize how fucked up this whole situation was? Cam must have noticed the panicked look on my face because he quickly backtracked. "Never mind, forget I said anything. It can wait until I see you in person next week." I let out a shaky breath, not realizing I'd been holding it in. "Why ye? Yeah, that's probably better." We made small talk for a few more minutes, but my mind kept drifting back to those three words. "I love you." What did he mean by that exactly? The conversation with Cam eventually fizzled out into another stretch of awkward silence. He looked just as lost in thought as I was, absent-mindedly running his fingers through his disheveled hair. I couldn't stop replaying those three words over and over in my head. "I love you." How many times had I imagined him saying that to me? But now that he actually had, I didn't know what the hell to make of it. Cam's eyes flicked up and met mine through the screen. My breath caught in my throat as I noticed how impossibly blue they were, even in the crappy video quality. "You're doing it again," he said with a little smirk. "Doing what?" I tried to play it cool, but I could already feel the warmth spreading across my cheeks. Staring at me like I'm some kind of snack. Cam laughed, clearly enjoying how flustered I was getting. "See something you like, bro?" I opened and closed my mouth, but no words came out. What could I possibly say? That I couldn't stop thinking about how goddamn gorgeous he was? That sometimes I caught myself daydreaming about running my hands through his stupid hair. "Cat got your tongue?" Cam teased, his eyes crinkling up at the corners. I wanted to be pissed at him for toying with me like this, but at the same time I lived for these little moments where it felt like there was something more happening between us, even if neither of us acknowledged it. I couldn't take Cam's teasing any longer. My face was burning up and there was a tightness building in my chest. I had to get out of this conversation before I said, or did something I'd regret. "Whatever, man, I gotta go get ready for class," I mumbled, struggling to meet his gaze through the webcam. Cam must have picked up on my discomfort because his expression softened. "All right, yeah, don't want to make you late." An uneasy silence fell between us again. I could feel Cam's eyes boring into me as I fidgeted awkwardly with the sheets. Finally, he spoke up, his voice low and serious. "We're still cool though, right? After what I said last night, it doesn't have to be a thing if you don't want it to be." I frowned at him through the screen. Was he really going to act like he didn't mean anything by those three words? Like they didn't just set my whole world spinning? "Dude, you can't just drop a bomb like 'I love you' and then pretend it's no big deal." I blurted out before I could stop myself. Cam's eyes went wide for a second before his face settled into a small smirk. "So it is a big deal to you then?" Yes, I opened in mouth, but then immediately clamped it shut, feeling my cheeks flaming up again. Damn it, why did he have to put me on the spot like this? An awkward silence stretched out between us as I desperately tried to think of a response that didn't make me sound like a total idiot. Finally, I managed to stammer out, I don't know, man, I'm just confused, I guess." Cam regarded me carefully through the webcam. For a moment, I thought he might actually drop it. But then he leaned in closer, his eyes locking intensely with mine. "Well, let me make it a little less confusing for you then," he said in a low voice that sent a shiver down my spine. "When I said I love you last night, I meant it, as more than just buddies or whatever this is we're doing." My heart felt like it was going to beat straight out of my chest. This couldn't actually be happening, could it? Hey, are you serious? I managed to choke out. But you're not, gay? Sam shrugged nonchalantly, like we were just discussing the weather. I don't really like labels, dude. I just know there's something between us, something more than friendship. He paused, giving me a once-over that made me feel weirdly exposed, even through the webcam. But hey, if that's not what you want, it's cool. We can just keep things like they are and pretend last night didn't happen. No, I blurted out, probably too eagerly. I could feel my cheeks burning as Calm raised an eyebrow at. Taking a deep breath, I pushed aside all the doubts and internal panic swirling around in my head. Look, man, I'm interested in whatever this is too. More than interested, honestly. Cam's face broke out into a wide grin at my admission. Well, all right then, stud. Guess we're on the same page. I couldn't believe this was actually happening. After months of burying my feelings, convincing myself they were just bromance or whatever, Cam was straight up putting it all out there. Part of me wanted to keep questioning it, ask him again if he really knew what he was saying. But the larger part was tired of overthinking everything. For once, I wanted to just go with what felt right. So I scratched the back of my neck awkwardly. What now? You want to, go grab dinner or something when I'm done with class? Cam let out a low chuckle. Dude, you're really gonna wine and dine me on our first date. Classy. My cheeks burned at his teasing, but I rolled my eyes in an attempt to play it cool. Hey man, I'm a gentleman. You should have known that already. Uh-huh, sure thing, pretty boy. Cam's expression turned almost predatory as he looked me over. How about for our first date, you just get your pretty little ass over here later. He paused, licking his lip, to pick up where we left off last night. A jolt of excitement shot through me, getting me riled up in more ways than one. Clearing my throat, I tried my best to match Cam's heated gaze. Why ye? And what did you have in mind exactly? Use your imagination, Cam said with a wink. I'll make it worth your while, I promise. My imagination was already running wild at this point. Despite my nerves, I was aching to see where this new side of our relationship could go. It's a date then, I managed to say, hoping my voice didn't sound as shaky as I felt. The rest of the day seemed to drag on interminably after my hot and heavy video chat with Cam. I could barely focus during my classes, my mind replaying our flirtatious banter on a loop. Every time I thought about seeing Cam in person later, getting a chance to take things to the next level physically, arousal pooled low in my belly. More than once, I had to adjust myself discreetly to hide my growing erection. By the time my last class finally rolled around, I was a wound-up mess of nerves and horny anticipation. I could barely pay attention to the lecture, too busy imagining all the things Cam and I might get up to once I got to his place. Would he just go for it and kiss me as soon as I walked through the door? Or would he tease me first, get me all riled up before finally giving me what I wanted? A shiver went through me at the thought of Cam taking control like that. The second class mercifully ended, was out the door, and practically sprinting back to my apartment, I dumped my backpack and barely even glanced in the mirror before heading straight for Cam's place. By the time I reached his door, I was a breathless, fidgety wreck. Taking a deep, steadying breath, I raised my fist to knock. This was really happening. After months of skirting around our true feelings, Cam and I were finally going to face them head on. I just hoped I was ready for wherever this took us. My heart was pounding in my ears as I knocked on Cam's door. For a moment, there was only silence from the other side. Then I heard some muffled shuffling and thumping footsteps. The door swung open and there was Cam, shirtless and looking deliciously rumpled. A slow smirk spread across his face when he saw me standing there. Well, look who's all bright-eyed and eager, he purred, giving me an obvious once-over that made my skin prickle. I opened my mouth to respond, but my words caught in my throat. Cam just looked so good, the defined cuts of his abs, with sculpted arms I'd been low-key ogling for months, all of it on full display. It was like he knew exactly how to push my buttons. Licking my lips, I managed to find my voice. You just gonna stand there checking me out? Or you gonna invite me inside? Cam chuckled low in his throat, sending a shiver down my spine. Getting bold on me, huh? I like that. He stepped back, holding the door open wider in a silent invitation. My throat went dry as I brushed past him into the apartment, close enough that our bare arms grazed together. As soon as the door closed behind me, I felt Cam's solid weight pressing against my back, trapping me between his hard body and the wall. His lips grazed the sensitive shell of my ear as he murmured, "Now we can pick up where we left off." Cam's breath was hot against my neck, sending a shiver down my spine. My heart pounded wildly as I felt the hard planes of his chest pressing into my back. This was really happening. We were finally crossing that line into something more than just friends. Slowly, I turned around to face him, our bodies brushing together. Up this close, I could see the smoldering intensity in Cam's eyes as he looked me over hungrily. "So, what did you have in mind?" I managed to get out, proud that my voice didn't shake too much. Instead of answering, Cam reached up and cupped the back of my neck, pulling me in closer until our foreheads were practically touching. My breath caught in my throat as his other hand skimmed down my side, coming to rest possessively on my hip. "I've been thinking about doing this for a long time, pretty boy," he rumbled in that deep voice that drove me crazy. Then his lips were crashing against mine in a searing kiss that had me melting against him. It was greedy and messy, all teeth and tongue, but I didn't care. I kissed him back feverishly, hands roaming over his naked torso like I'd been starving for his touch. When we finally broke apart, we were both panting harshly. Cam gave me a crooked grin before dipping his head to trail scorching kisses along my jawline. "Fuck," I hissed out as he nipped at the sensitive spot beneath my ear. "You weren't kidding about making it worth my while." Against my neck, I could feel Cam's low chuckle vibrating through me. "Oh, believe me, baby, I'm just getting started with you." Cam's words sent a jolt of arousal straight to my core. Before I could react further, he captured my lips in another bruising kiss, one hand fisting in my hair to angle my head how he wanted. I moaned shamelessly into his mouth, any lingering inhibitions melting away in the face of his dominant. Suddenly, Cam broke the kiss, both of us panting hotly. His eyes were dark with want as he looked me over slowly. "Clothes off." Now he growled in a tone that brooked no argument. My hands were shaking with a heady mix of nerves and arousal as I hurriedly stripped off my shirt, letting it drop to the floor. Cam watched me with rapt attention, licking his lips appreciatively as more of my skin was exposed. Once I was stripped down to my boxers, I shifted self-consciously under his heated gaze. Sensing my hesitation, Cam closed the distance between us again, trailing his fingertips along the waistband of my underwear teasingly. "Don't get shy on me now, baby," he rumbled, lips brushing my ear. "You're fucking gorgeous, you know that?" I shivered at his words, any remaining self-consciousness replaced by a searing ember of want. Boldly, I hooked my fingers into Cam's shorts and gave them a tug. "Your turn," I said in a tone that surprised me with its sultriness. "I want to see all of you." Cam's eyes flashed darkly, but he made no move to undress further. Instead, he grabbed my wrist and spun me around, pulling my back flush against his chest. His thick bulge pressed insistently against my ass, drawing a choked whimper from me. "All in good time," he promised, voice a low rumble against my neck before nipping at the sensitive skin there. "First, I'm going to open you up nice and slow." His nimble fingers dipped beneath my waistband and I gasped sharply, realizing where this was heading. Part of me felt like I should protest, ask to slow things down. But the much larger part was burning with desperation to finally have Cam, all of him. So instead, I just nodded breathlessly and let my head fall back against his shoulder, surrendering fully to his touch. Cam's calloused fingers felt electric as they stroked over my most intimate areas. I squirmed against him, letting out a shuddering gasp at the new sensations. "Easy, baby," Cam murmured hotly against my ear. "Just relax and let me take care of you." He punctuated the words with a firm squeeze that had me bucking back into his touch desperately. Chuckling darkly, he began working me open with expert twists of his fingers, stretching me wide. I was quickly reduced to a whimpering, writhing mess in his arms. Every brush of Cam's fingers inside me lit a new spark of pleasure pain that had me seeing stars. My hand scrabbled at his shoulders, seeking an anchor in the storm of sensation. "See, Cam," I panted out his name like a prayer. "I can't, oh fuck." "You can take a little more for me," he growled, somehow knowing exactly how to stroke me to wind me up tighter. "Gonna make you feel so good, baby. Gonna split you open on my thick." A broken moan spilled from my lips at his filthy words. Heat was coiling tighter and tighter low in my belly, edging me right to the precipice. It was all so overwhelming, so much more intense than anything I'd experienced before. Just when I thought I might shatter into pieces, Cam removed his fingers abruptly, leaving me clenching desperately around empty air. I tried to protest, to beg him not to stop, but he cut me off with a deep, claiming kiss. When he pulled back, his gaze was dark with primal hunger. "Turn around and bend over for me," he rasped out in a tone that brokered no argument. "I'm going to give you what you need." My thighs were already shaking with need, but I quickly complied, bracing my hands against the wall as Cam stripped off his boxers behind me. Part of my brain remained hyper-aware that we were crossing a line we could never uncross. But one brush of Cam's thick cock against my entrance was enough to scatter any remaining coherent thoughts. This was really happening. I whimpered softly and arched my back shamelessly in silent supplication. "Fuck, look at you," Cam groaned. "Such a greedy little slut for me already." In the aftermath, Cam and I lay tangled together, our skin slick with sweat and our breathing ragged. An odd sense of peace settled over me as I felt the steady rise and fall of his chest against my back. Despite the intensity of what we just shared, I wasn't freaking out like I thought I might. If anything, I felt content, complete, even. Cam's fingers traced idle patterns along my arm, raising goosebumps in their wake. "You okay?" he murmured, voice low and rumbly with satiation. I let out a breathless chuckle. "I should be the one asking you that. Pretty sure I spaced out on you a few times there." He shrugged lazily, pressing a kiss to the nape of my neck that had me shivering. "I didn't exactly give you a chance to catch your breath, did I?" Rolling onto my back, I gazed up at him with what I could only imagine was a completely smitten look on my face. Cam's features were soft in the dim light, eyes shining with an emotion I couldn't quite put my finger on. So I began hesitantly, "What now? Where do we go from here?" Instead of responding right away, Cam leaned down and captured my lips in a slow, deep kiss that curled my toes. When he pulled back, he was smiling that lopsided grin I loved so much. "How about we go wherever this crazy ride takes us?" he murmured. "No labels, no overthinking it. We just be us and see what happens." I searched his face for any hesitation, but found none. Slowly I smiled back and gave a small nod of agreement, snuggling closer against his solid warmth. Maybe this wasn't the conventional route. Maybe we'd face struggles along the way. But in that moment, just being wrapped up in Cam's arms, I knew I was right where I belonged. In the weeks that followed, Cam and I settled into an easy rhythm together. On the surface, not much had changed. We still hung out, studied together, griped about classes. But now there was an electric undercurrent of intimacy and longing that hummed between us constantly. So we tried to keep things under wraps at first, sneaking heated kisses and heated touches whenever we had the apartment to ourselves. But it quickly became apparent we were fooling no one with our not-so-subtle flirting and lingering looks. Our friend group started making jokes and dropping not-so-subtle hints that they were onto us. Cam just smirked and brushed it off, never one to care much about other people's opinions. I, on the other hand, felt my cheeks flushing hot with anxiety and shame every time the subject came up. What would my parents think if they knew their supposedly straight son was messing around with another guy? Sid must have sensed my internal spiral because he pulled me aside one night after everyone else headed out. Cupping my face in those strong, calloused hands I loved so much, he stared at me intently. "Hey, where'd you go just now?" he murmured, brushing his thumb over my cheekbone. "You know their jokes don't mean anything, right?" I managed a tight nod, unable to meet his warm gaze. "I know, it's just what if they're right? What if this," I gestured, vaguely between us, "isn't as casual as we're trying to make it seem?" Cam was quiet for a long moment, seeming to mull over my words. When he spoke again, his voice was uncharacteristically serious. "You're right, it's not casual for me at all. Not anymore." He paused, letting out a rueful chuckle. "I'm fucking gone for you, man. Have been for a while, if I'm being honest with myself." My breath caught in my throat as I searched his expression, hardly daring to believe what I was hearing. Cam's gaze was steady, open, his eyes shining with an emotion I realized now was plain as day. Devotion. In that moment, I made my decision. Throwing caution to the wind, I surged up and kissed him hard, trying to pour every confused tangle of feeling into that heated press of lips. When it finally broke apart, I dropped my forehead against his, the worry uncurling in my chest. "Then I guess we stop pretending this is casual," I murmured. "We're all in, you and me." From that moment on, something shifted between Cam and me. We stopped trying to hide or downplay whatever was happening and just let it unfold naturally. At first, it was almost frighteningly intense. I'd go from casual hangouts with our friends to having my back shoved against the wall, Cam's mouth hot and demanding on mine the second we were alone, more than once. I had to excuse myself to the bathroom, face flushed and breath shaky after one of his heated make-out sessions. But as the physical connection deepened, so did the emotional one. We started sharing things with each other that we'd never spoken about before. Childhood traumas, secret dreams, past heartbreaks. Cam was the first person I finally came out to about my fluid sexuality, and he just pulled me close with a soft "I know, baby." With him, I never had to pretend or censor myself. I could simply be. It was both electrifying and terrifying being known so intimately by another person. The first time Cam said "I love you" during one of our lazy morning cuddles, I stiffened automatically. But he just stroked my cheek and smiled that crooked grin that made my heart flip. "It's okay, no pressure," he murmured. "You don't have to say it back until you're ready. I'm not going anywhere." And damn if those words didn't make me melt, because for once I actually believed it. Cam saw me, the real messy me, and he wasn't running away. Eventually, I worked up the courage to introduce him to my parents as my boyfriend, not just my buddy from the dorms. Their strained smiles and awkward attempts at acceptance stung, but Cam just squeezed my hand tight under the table in silent support. With him by my side, I slowly stopped caring as much about anyone else's opinion. Because when Cam looked at me with those warm, adoring eyes, I finally felt like enough just as I was. Over the next year, Cam and I faced more than our fair share of challenges, dealing with the fallout from unsupportive friends and family who couldn't accept our relationship, pushing through bouts of internalized shame that would resurface, making me question if we were wrong to be together. But through it all, Cam was my anchor. Whenever I started to get swept up in the storm of doubt and self-loathing, he'd ground me with those piercing blue eyes and a soft "I've got you, baby." In his arms was a sanctuary where I never had to hide or apologize for who I loved. Slowly, I learned to stop seeking validation from the outside world, because Cam made me feel seen, desired, cherished in a way I'd been desperately craving for so long. We became each other's safe harbor in the tempest. There were still moments of struggle, of course. Nights we'd lie awake, tangled up and talking through our fears about an uncertain future. But we vowed to face it all together, drawing strength from the bond that kept deepening between us. The first time I finally murmured those three loaded words, "I love you," back to Cam, he went perfectly still against me. Then he rolled us so he was hovering over me, eyes shining with too many emotions to count. "Say it again," he rasped hoarsely, like he couldn't quite believe what he'd heard. So I did, cradling his face in my hands as I spoke the words I'd been hiding for far too long. "I love you, Cam, all of you, flaws and all." When he kissed me then, it was achingly soft and reverent, a acceptance and affirmation of the journey that had led us here, to this profound love that transcended boundaries. As we moved forward, facing down an unknown future side by side, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. This is the US and might not be normal or conventional, but it was real, it was right, it was the kind of soul-deep love worth fighting for again and again.